Hey, what's up? My name is J.M. Chaley and welcome to my channel. This week I want to talk about medieval houses. We see them all over the place in our books, in movies, in television shows. You name it, medieval houses are depicted almost entirely the same way. I did a search on medieval houses just before this video to get an idea of, am I talking bullshit? Is it just me? Am I crazy? No. Here are the search results on medieval houses. Couple of screens here. What do they have in common? Well, they all look like these kind of planky 15th and 16th century homes, these European cottages. And that's kind of the look that we get when it comes to medieval houses in fantasy fiction, what have you, whether it's books, TV, or movies. Now, sure, we get the thatched roof cottages and stuff like that. We get the huts and all this kind of stuff, the little hovels made of stone, of course. We still have those things. By and large, when someone walks into a town, when someone, if we see a piece of art, for example, whether it's in a role-playing game or whatever, a depiction of medieval times, the houses are kind of the same. And for whatever reason, we gravitate to these 15th and 16th century style European cottages, which, by the way, is the late Middle Ages. The Middle Ages lasted hundreds and hundreds of years, dating back at its very beginnings to when the Roman Empire was still around. Houses didn't look like that all the time, and they certainly didn't look like that all over the world. So I wanted to make this video to talk about other ways that we can show medieval houses in our own fantasy fiction, in our own setting, in our own world building, so that we have something else to draw on and think of things differently. Maybe look around the world, other parts of the world, and what those houses look like at that same time period, and see if that might be a good look for your story, your setting. So I think if we're going to go back and look at everything that we have available to us, or maybe not everything, but I want to keep this video relatively short, we have to go back to the age of antiquity. Here are Sumerian house plans. And as you can see, written on this tablet here, multiple rooms. This house was probably for someone very prominent, right? Someone wealthy. I'm sure they didn't draw up house plans on tablets for every Tom, Dick, and Harry that lived in Sumer, right? So obviously this was a wealthy man's home, but you can see multiple rooms. These are solid walls, probably made of stone. And this is thousands of years before the Roman Empire even rose to dominance. And when the Roman Empire came, guess what they did? They made things out of stone. They had their own concrete. They made houses and villas and cities out of stone. They had apartment buildings, 2-3 stories high, that you could rent or live in temporarily. All these things were made from stone. So what happened? How do we get from all this stone to this kind of mud pack, wood, and all this other stuff? Well, the Romans had to import all their stone from other quarries. There were other rock quarries in around Italy, but they imported a lot of stuff, marble, granite, from Egypt. And that became expensive, time-consuming. You had a finite number of resources available to you. It just wasn't practical, especially after the empire fell, and who the hell was doing this for you? You had to kind of make do with stuff on your own. But this wasn't just Rome. It wasn't just Italy. You had these big, vast cities in other parts of the Roman Empire, which spanned all around northern Africa as well. Here's a city in Algeria that was all stone. That's where people lived. And when these empires fell, and you didn't have the infrastructure of a civilization who was going to build cities for you, you had to kind of make do with stuff on your own. And especially if you were just a regular person that didn't have a lot of money or resources to themselves, you had to make do with what you had, which was pretty much in the environment around you, the woods, the field. Even if there were stones in the field, I guess you could build a stone house out of that. We see that kind of stuff in Ireland, Scotland, right? These homes made of fieldstone with a thatched roof on top, right? We see that all the time. But by and large, during the Middle Ages, when stone was available, it got absconded by the nobles to build castles. So what building materials were you left with as a regular person in the Middle Ages if you weren't a nobleman? Well, I mentioned using fieldstones and thatched roof. That stuff definitely happened. If you could dig up stones on your own, put them into a house, awesome. Knock yourself out, you had yourself a house. Another popular building material that was used was wattle and daub. Now, wattle and daub was a combination of mud, hay, clay, sometimes dung, and you built a wooden frame with posts, wove in thicker sticks and twigs, and used the wattle to pack all of that and build the walls out of it. And that would harden and be like a kind of poor man's concrete, literally a poor man's concrete, into a sort of dry, solid wall. And over time it would flake away and break and become brittle, but you could patch it up and build more. And again, you'd put a thatched roof on top, and there you go, you had a house. So that's kind of what happened here on Earth in history, right? That's kind of what we saw happen over the hundreds of years through the age of antiquity into the Middle Ages. Regardless of what a medieval home should look like, there were a lot of varieties of medieval homes in even just Europe alone. But we're fantasy fiction writers, right? And you have your own setting, and maybe that setting isn't on Earth. But maybe your world is a medieval fantasy setting, and you want some elements of the medieval feel, or maybe the ancient feel or something, and you're looking for something that might add a little marvel or a feeling of something fantastic to your setting. And my advice to you would be to look beyond Europe. I mean, sure, there's a lot of good stuff in Europe, we talked about it, but people were doing pretty amazing things to build houses all over the world. For example, in the southwest of the United States and down in through Mexico, they built houses of adobe, which was a type of clay that would harden, and they build homes out of it. And it was a very, very effective, solid, sturdy material that's still being used today. They used different building materials in Asia. They used bamboo and things that didn't really grow in Europe at that time. They had a lot of things at their disposal as well, between rock, bamboo, other types of wood. And they got creative with how they built their homes as well. In Turkey, in the Cappadocian region, we see rock-cut houses. Now, some of these were temples. Some of these were meant to be places of prayer. But people actually would carve homes right into the side of mountains and cliffs and live inside them. Inside would have been very cool. It would have been very ideal for storing grain. You could have kept your livestock cool and out of the desert heat. And it would have been a very efficient way to live and protect yourself from the elements. We see examples of rock-cut houses, not just in Cappadocia, but even in the United States with Native Americans who carved homes into the cliff faces. This was definitely a very innovative, ingenious way to build homes if you lived in a place that was all rocks and cliffs. Another example is something that we can find in the Caribbean and even as far north as Bermuda. And here we have, and these are not medieval houses. These are houses that were probably built maybe 1700s, 1800s. So we're talking beyond the medieval period, certainly. But I wanted to mention them here because the ingenuity was so simple, yet so ingenious, that it could have lived very easily in the medieval period had it been discovered at that time by the Carib Indians that lived there. So here we have a place in the world that gets a lot of rain, and people are building homes there. And these homes are made of cinder blocks, really. A lot of the homes in the Caribbean are just stacked cinder blocks together, and we see that in Bermuda as well. This could have been stone if this was a medieval twist on these sort of homes. But the remarkable thing about these homes is the roof. And I've seen them called Bermuda-style roofs or Barbados-style roofs. Basically, these are pyramid-shaped roofs that capture rainwater. As you can see from these pictures, the rain kind of comes down these step-like structures on the roof. There's little gutters that divert the water. And where does the water go? The water goes down pipes, through the house, and down below into a cistern. They capture the water and they use it for washing dishes, laundry, taking showers. They don't drink it. I've asked them, they're like, no, we don't drink that water. They have other well water for that. But, I mean, I suppose they could if this was a medieval twist on this sort of ingenuity. We have examples of people that use methods to capture rainwater in cisterns. The Romans did it. The Greeks did it. This isn't anything new, but this style of roof is very ingenious in how it captures the rainwater so that you're maximizing the surface space of the rain that's coming down and capturing as much water as you possibly can to fill your cisterns. So that about wraps it up. Other ideas for medieval houses. They don't always have to be cottages or thatched roof hovels or even wattle and daub. As popular as wattle and daub was, not everything has to be some analog of what existed in Europe. It's your setting. You can do whatever you want. You can build whatever you want. Take a look at stuff going all over around the world. Look at this. This is an adobe building. It looks like something out of Mos Eisley on Tatooine. Guess what George Lucas did? He took a look at different types of houses and wanted to build his world and give it its own look that might not have been common to most people. I would encourage you to take a look at architecture around the world, see what might fit in your setting, and if it works, use it. You know, if you haven't given a lot of thought to what your cities and towns and homes look like in your medieval setting, here's a great opportunity to put your spin on it, your take on it, and make it your own. If you like this video, please smush that like button, and as always, please subscribe. It's a huge help if you subscribe to my channel. And you can follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also read the first chapter of my book, A Flower in Hell, on jmchaley.com. Check out my webpage, send me a message, sign up for my newsletter. Let's keep in touch. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.